Stepping into her shoes was never something I imagined myself doing, at least not in the literal sense. Growing up, I always knew who I was supposed to be, or rather who the world said I should be, but deep down there was always this quiet tug, a whisper I tried to silence that told me there was more to me than the narrow definition I had been given. It began innocently enough one afternoon when my sister asked me to help her carry some boxes down from the attic. She had been clearing out old clothes and shoes she no longer wore, and the attic was crammed with her forgotten fashion experiments. When we opened one of the boxes together, my eyes were immediately drawn to a pair of red heels, tall and elegant, with a slight shimmer in the light. I don't know why I stared at them so long, but I did, and she noticed. She chuckled lightly and said, "You want to try them on, don't you?" My instinct was to deny it, laugh it off, but the truth was her teasing had caught me because a part of me did want to slip them on, just to see what it felt like. I hesitated, nervous that if I admitted anything she would see straight through me, but she surprised me by placing them right in front of me and saying, "Go ahead, I dare you." I remember the weight of that moment, the nervous laughter spilling out of me as I sat down and slid my feet inside. The shoes were a little snug, but when I stood up, taller than usual, the sensation was indescribable. The click of the heels on the wooden floor, the way I wobbled and then steadied myself, it was like stepping into a role I hadn't rehearsed, but somehow knew instinctively. My sister clapped her hands dramatically and said, "Look at you. You're a natural." My cheeks burned, but I was smiling, more from the thrill than embarrassment. She didn't stop there, though. She rummaged through another box and pulled out a flowing skirt, floral and soft, and without asking draped it around me. At first I protested, but then I caught sight of myself in the old dusty mirror propped against the wall. That reflection hit me harder than I ever expected. There I was, standing in a skirt and heels, my face still very much my own, but my posture, the way I was carrying myself, it was different. I couldn't look away. That night, I couldn't sleep. The mirror image of myself in those clothes replayed over and over in my head. It wasn't just about the outfit, it was about how it made me feel. A freedom, a release, like I had been holding my breath for years without realizing it, and suddenly someone told me it was okay to exhale. The next day, when my sister asked if I wanted to try again, I didn't hesitate. She was surprisingly supportive, guiding me with makeup brushes, showing me how to contour lightly, how to add color without overdoing it. She handed me a wig from one of her old costume parties, a brunette bob that framed my face in a way that startled me when I saw it. The transformation wasn't perfect, far from it, but in the mirror I saw someone I recognized and didn't recognize at the same time. It was like meeting a version of myself that had been waiting patiently in the background, finally allowed to step forward. The suspense wasn't just in how I looked, it was in how I felt about being seen. My sister nudged me playfully and said we should go out for a walk, test her confidence. My heart nearly stopped. The idea of stepping outside dressed like this was terrifying. Every muscle in my body wanted to say no, but another voice, quiet but firm, told me I should try. We waited until the evening when the streets were calmer, and I remember every single step as though the ground beneath me was testing my resolve. The heels clicked against the pavement, each sound echoing my heartbeat. I was terrified that every passerby would stare, that someone would laugh, but most people didn't notice. Those who did only gave passing glances, nothing more. The suspense of being in public like that was overwhelming but exhilarating. My sister squeezed my hand and whispered, "You're doing amazing." The days that followed blurred into a series of experiments. We tried different outfits, different hairstyles, playing with colors, silhouettes, and accessories. I started to understand what suited me, what made me feel comfortable, what made me feel powerful. The drama wasn't just external, though. It was inside me, a storm of emotions I hadn't prepared for. One evening after another transformation session, I sat staring at myself in the mirror with tears welling in my eyes. My sister asked what was wrong, but I couldn't explain it at first. It wasn't sadness, it wasn't fear. It was this overwhelming realization that the person I was seeing in the reflection felt more real to me than the person I had been showing the world all my life. That thought shook me deeply. I had spent years building a version of myself that fit expectations, and now I was unraveling it thread by thread, uncovering something new yet so familiar. There were moments of doubt too. I would wake up the next morning and wonder if I had gone too far, if I was making a fool of myself, if it was all just a fantasy I couldn't sustain. But then the memory of how I felt in those clothes, the way my heart lifted when I saw myself transformed, would return, pulling me back. My sister became my anchor, encouraging me when I faltered, reminding me that it wasn't about perfection but about honesty, about expressing who I truly was. The emotional twists were relentless. One weekend, she suggested I attend a small gathering at her friend's place, just a casual evening, nothing big. The idea filled me with dread, but she assured me her friends were open-minded and supportive. I spent hours preparing. Every detail suddenly felt monumental. I wanted to look right, to feel right, to be seen the way I wanted to be seen. When we finally arrived, I was trembling inside, but her friends welcomed me warmly. They complimented my outfit. They treated me as though nothing was unusual, and for the first time in a social setting, I felt invisible in the best way possible. Not invisible because I didn't exist, but invisible because there was nothing to hide, nothing to defend. I could simply be. As time passed, I grew more confident. I learned to walk in heels without wobbling, to do my own makeup with patience, to style outfits that matched my mood. But more importantly, I learned to carry myself differently. The transformation wasn't just physical, it seeped into my posture, my tone, my gestures. The person I was becoming wasn't a disguise, it was an unveiling. The suspense of not knowing how others would react slowly faded, replaced by the suspense of how I would continue to grow, how far I would allow myself to go in exploring this part of me. One night, months after that first step into my sister's shoes, I stood alone in front of the mirror again. The heels fit perfectly now, no hesitation in my stance. The outfit was one I had chosen entirely by myself, and the reflection staring back felt whole. I thought about the journey, about the fear, the thrill, the tears, and the laughter. I thought about how something as simple as slipping into a pair of shoes had unraveled an entire hidden chapter of my life. And as I looked at myself, I whispered quietly, "This is me." It wasn't a performance, it wasn't make-believe, it was discovery, and it was only the beginning.